Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Shenandoah Valley. My name is Evan Yannick, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We are a welcoming congregation that allows every person the right to develop a personal philosophy of life without being told what to believe. We can learn from all philosophies and religions, and also from science and the arts. We explore important life issues in a caring community united by shared values rather than by shared theological opinions. And no matter what we believe about theology or philosophy, we try to leave the world better than we found it. I encourage you to take note of our own mission statement, here printed on the front of our order of service, along with the 8 principles printed on the inside of the order of service. We make it a tradition here to welcome visitors and guests, and to have them introduce themselves if they're here for the first or second time. If we've got anybody on this side of the church, please stand and tell us who you are and where you're from.
You said second time, so I'm a second time Christian.
Right.
My name is Christian Law, and I happen to live just right down on 6th Street. It's my second time to visit. This is a cool place, I can tell you.
Well, we hope to have you back for a third time. Anyone else on this side? No? How about over on this side of the church? All right. Well, we're glad that you're all here. If you're interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism or about our church and receiving our newsletter, please fill out one of the little white cards that you find in the back of the pew or in the foyer. And you can leave it in the collection plate, thank you Larry, or in the foyer on the desk. We further invite everyone to stay after the church service for our first potluck in over 2 years. And for those of you who are a little bit more industrious, Susan is having a work day out in the lawn. So fill up your belly and get to work. I've got a couple short announcements. Tomorrow there are 2 meetings happening here at the church. Number 1 is the Armed Intruder training being hosted by the Safety Committee with input from the Black Mountain Police. So that'll be here tomorrow at 4:30.
Is that where they train us how to be armed intruders?
And second, tomorrow at 6, there will be the beginning of covenant groups, which many UUs will know is a conversation about listening. So that will be tomorrow at 6, and I believe it's going to be going on the 2nd and 4th Monday all the way through August. So folks are welcome to come to that. Lastly, 5 of our members who are members of the Reuters Center Singers will be performing. So we want to encourage folks to go to that next Sunday afternoon, May 1st at 3 p.m. So
where is it going to be?
It will be downtown at the First Congregational UCC, 20 Oak Street, downtown Asheville. So, thank you. And now, please silence your cell phones and any noisemakers, and we will let our service begin.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a gorgeous day. I'll get you out there in an hour. I hope to, anyway. It's good to see you. And I want to open with the words from Unitarian Universalist William Schultz, who used to be the president of the association some years ago, if my memory serves correct. This is the mission of our faith: to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the entire world in our hands. And so, having said that, thank you, Diane. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able, and join in singing our first hymn this morning, our holy hymn. reading. 444. In the back of the gray hymnal, we'll read this responsively. It's called This House. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature.
It is a house of friendships, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle.
It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person.
It offers a platform for the free voice, for declaring both in times of security and danger, the full and undivided conflict of opinion.
It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, and where mystics can abide in a community of searchers.
It is a house of art, adorning celebrations with melodies and handiworks.
It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress.
This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor.
You didn't know this house was all those things. Sometimes we forget. Nothing else? As usual. UCSB Tabernacle Park. All righty. This is the time in the service where we invite you to come up and share a joy, a concern, a sorrow. Diane will light the candle for you if you wish, or you can do it yourself, and the mic is yours.
came across, oh, my name is Joy. Glad I remembered. I came across Martin Luther King Jr.'s quote. Oh, there's a reason for these glasses. Kind of, a little broken my heart. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, have to keep moving forward. So that's from 2019. And when I thought about this, I realized that the most wonderful people were assassinated. So what I came up with, JFK, Abraham Lincoln, Mahatma Gandhi.
MLK.
I'm Andy. Deborah Austin is one of the great lights of the theater community in Western North Carolina and has been all her life. And last Sunday, well, she and I have been friends since I was 12 years old, more than 50 years ago. And last Sunday, she was leading the Easter egg hunt at the Biltmore estate and suffered a severe heart attack. She's been in the ICU for over a week now and is slowly stabilizing. But Deborah is one of my dearest and longest term and closest friends, and one of this region's most important people in the arts community. So if you will just keep her in your hearts, and in your minds, in your prayers, and your candles, it would be appreciated.
Just takes a moment, doesn't it, for your whole life to change. Anyhow, my name's Eileen, and I have a joy and a non-joy, whatever. The joy is that I found you guys again after I don't know how many years of being away, the prodigal daughter, and I'm so grateful for how embraced I felt by this congregation and the new friends I've made. That's my joy, and to be singing again, all of us without our masks. And then a little bit of a sadness, but not much. Every year, some of you know, I go very, very north to 8 miles from Quebec border in Canada to take care of abandoned, neglected, and abused farm animals, particularly the critically endangered. And here's the word that nobody gets, poitou, French word, P-O-I-T-O-U, donkeys. So I'm looking forward to being with them and being back under a very big sky and huge water. The lake is 37 miles into Canada and into Vermont. And I'm from a land of big sky and big water. So that's a joy for me that I'm anticipating. But I'll miss you guys, and I'll be back.
Hi, I'm Larry Perlman. I have a great joy and what will probably be a huge surprise for, I'm guessing, all of you. On Friday, Linda Metzner and I got married. Okay, not really, but Linda was in Advent Hospital having a procedure done. Jim was kind enough to take her down there at some insane hour in the morning, and I went to pick her up. And when I got there, the nurse brought me back, and she said, "Your wife is ready to go."
Maybe I should have stayed. I'm the aforementioned Jim. I have a joy and a sorrow. The joy is that our foster son's new family is just working out so well that they called us and asked us to watch him 3 days last weekend for Easter, and I thought, great. We got him back and was all planning to come here and share the joy of him with you one last time. And the little guy got a heavy fever and was just crying and needed to be held all weekend. And I realized that's the joy of being a parent too. So I couldn't be here, but we were here with you in spirit. And the concern is that this weekend, yesterday, my wife spiked 106-degree temperature. Was ordered to go to Mission Hospital, where we waited 7 hours to get service. And the good news is she's hopefully turned the corner, and we think it's only the flu, and that her temperature's back down this morning. She's doing a performance on Wednesday with the Learning Community School, and obviously this is crunch week for getting ready for that performance as music director. So keep her in your thoughts, and hopefully she'll heal quickly and can go back to school.
I'm Marty Saltzman, and this is the Joy and Concern Stand-Up Comedy Hour, because I want to tell you that Larry has now committed bigamy, because 2 years ago, we went to the airport together, and he was headed to the Galapagos, and I was headed to Paris, and he checked in first, and then the woman looked at me and said, "Are you going to the Galapagos too?" And I said, "No, I'm going to Paris," and Larry said, "Separate vacations makes a marriage last." So. And the other joy I want to share with you is, I'm doing this kind of on the spur of the moment, so hopefully I won't mess it up, is one of my favorite childhood poems. When I was a kid, I went to bed just about every night with the collected poems of Edna St. Vincent Millay, and this was one of my favorite, and it's called The Goose Girl. Spring rides no horses down the hill, but comes on foot, a goose girl still. And all the loveliest things there be come simply, so it seems to me. If ever I said in grief and pride, I tired of honest things, I lied, and shall be cursed forevermore, with love in laces like a whore, and neighbors cold, and friends unsteady, and spring on horseback like a lady. Thank you.
I'm the other Sue Stone. And I have a joy and concern. The joy is that after 2 years of using every modality available, Ken is now scheduled for back surgery on Wednesday. And the concern is that we need to pull together and make sure he comes out of it and does all of his physical therapy, and hopefully we'll be back soon.
Good morning. My name's Deb Vingle, and I know a couple of weeks ago Larry probably shared with you all that Kim and I had gone through COVID, and I'm just here to just speak a big joy of gratitude for folks in this congregation and beyond. We were very grateful and lucky to have been boosted, and just all the benefits of Western medicine. We had we had few symptoms comparatively, but the thing didn't want to let go real readily. It's not something to scoff at all. But the major reason for my being up here is that I've served on the care committee in this church for pretty much as long as I've been here, and shared it a couple of times, but I've never been on the receiving end of it. And I just want to tell you that folks like my neighbor and our congregant, Tina Rosado, would call me from Ingalls and say, okay, I'm at the grocery store, what do you need? Or I'm at the pharmacy, what do you need? And Julia Jordan said to me, I'm on call. And she was. I mean, if I really needed something, she was there. And Mark Manuel showed up with the prettiest bag of treats I've ever seen. It's just incredible. Raspberries and lox and things you would never buy for yourself, or I would never buy for myself. Anyway, and I could go on, but I just can't say enough how important this family is to us, and I'm sure to most of you. Thank you.
I have two announcements, one from Robert Times, and he wanted to send his greetings and his well wishes. He's feeling pretty well. He's enjoying his family, as he should. His low white blood cell count because of the leukemia keeps him away from us. And so he can't be here. He says he's fighting hard, and he appreciates all of our love and support, and keep sending him positive thoughts, and he's very grateful to be part of our community. Secondly, some of you may remember Beata Ball. She was our religious director for education here, and she's going through a rough time. She sends greetings. She says her aunt, who was the backbone of their family, died quite unexpectedly, and she died without a will. So this means her aunt's home will have to be sold to pay for the medical bills. Her mom and brother happen to live in that house. So she says they are looking for a place to live, her mom and brother, and she just wants a candle lit for her mom to be able to find a house soon. For those of you who, for whatever reason, decided not to come up, know that we keep you in our hearts and in our minds. I know sometimes people get up and I feel like they don't know what to say, keep me in your prayers. So we pray here. Not everybody, but it's okay. But we'll keep you in our positive thoughts, which to me is the same thing. But we're with you, and we're here for you. And if you need us, you must call. The meditation is for just center yourselves, if you will, and afterwards we're going to have a time of silence, and after that we're going to have my favorite song, the choir will do, this rendition I love. And this is called, pardon me, In Betweenness. In between festivals of gratitude and joy, in between seasons of contrasting color, between floods of brightness and seas of whiteness, we live. We live on a remote island outpost in fathomless space, between stars and moons and planets and void, surrounded by meteors and comets and rays and nothingness, in which there is no right or left, up or down, only in betweenness. We live not quite at the apex of joy, nor in the nether of sorrow, but in the moving space between being uncertain of our location. And we live. We live walking from city of birth to death, hoping along the way to see something of beauty, to touch hands with those we love, to give more than we get, to make some sense of it all. We live in betweenness. And now, while our minds are one for this brief moment, I leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is. We're going to sing pretty for you so you can give more. There's always an agenda.
There is more.
You found the money back there. Very good. Thank you for your generosity, in all seriousness. It keeps us going.
And none of the money goes to the choir.
That sounds like Larry. Well, I know part of this is gonna sound like a Twilight Zone. Imagine if you will. But it's not a Twilight Zone episode, I don't think. So, I'm gonna try and tie these together. So I want to talk briefly this morning about a word that is very difficult to define on so many levels. And so one reason is that in the English language, we only have one word for it. And the Germans have 8, the Spanish have 2, Sanskrit has 96, and the Greeks have 3. And I'm talking about the word love. The Greek language has agape, it has eros, and philia. And so, just briefly, eros is we know about, it's a romantic kind of love. It's an intimate kind of love. It's an erotic kind of love. Philia is the reciprocal love you feel for a friend, between friends. And so we're familiar with that kind of love. And we engage in all of these pretty much all the time. Agape, though, is more than eros and philia because it is understanding. And some of you may remember Thich Nhat Hanh talking about you cannot have love where there is no understanding. And so it is a creative and redeeming goodwill towards all of humanity. And it seeks nothing in return. Nothing. At this level of love, you love people, even those you find distasteful. You love people, folks, you don't even really like, because it transcends this illusion of separation, which we'll talk more about. I like N. Scott Peck's definition of love. There's so many definitions, but it resonates with me. It's one of the best. He says that love is when I extend myself for the growth of another individual. We didn't say any sentient being at this point, but back then, that's what he was just talking about, human beings. And so I like it. I hear it as being free of mere sentiment, but that's how I hear it. I also like this definition of love that states that love is the absence of all expectation. It's just there. You don't have to earn it. We talk about that with the inherent worth and dignity, and we go through the universalist thing of this all-encompassing love. And people say, well, I can't love that way. Well, love is a process, but you don't get to choose who deserves love. It's inherent in them. It's beautiful. But there are so many definitions of love, for love is something that is nearly impossible to really define, yet it's something that we all want, or at least we say we want. So how would we know when we found it? It may be different for each of us, and the questions may sometimes be more important than the answer. The burlesque artist, Gypsy Rose Lee, for instance, she says that God is love. But get it in writing. Get it in writing. It is easier. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. It's easier to define love for what it is not, which is much like religion. But love is not being nice when you feel surly. It's not doing good deeds of charity and service. It's not throwing caution to the wind and acting foolishly, masquerading as joy. But love will make you do those things. But we each, especially romantic love, but we each have in mind an image of someone who we believe knows what love is. okay? And so we give attributes to this person, this individual, that we don't believe that we have, or that we say we don't have, or that we hope to someday acquire. So our images of love are based on comparison because someone else that we have chosen demonstrates a trait which we say we are lacking in. And we use that image to beat ourselves up, to chastise ourselves, all the while saying this is what we want. If we look at, for instance, the life and teachings of Jesus, here this man says that you have what I have, only you don't believe it. And so there's only potential in you. But you have the same thing. But it's easier not to take that on because then there's what? There's responsibility. There's acknowledging how powerful we really are. The hardest thing for me in my life to accept is how powerful I really am. And I have to have people remind me of that. And they're going, yeah, you're right. Yeah. And then you really did so. So that's the spiritual journey. Ministers, if they're honest with you, we only have 3 or 4 sermons. You know what I mean? We just gotta dress that bad boy up every Sunday and get it to you. Because learning is relearning. Everything I'm saying to you, I believe what Plato said. You already know this. Nothing I have said, and I've been here a long time. I don't want to hear any comments. But nothing I've said to you, you didn't already know. My job is to remind you. And your job is to remind me just that we're all sparks. And so I dress it up. My other ministers, my different things, I'm always going to ask you to look within because nobody can take that from you. Nobody. No government. Nobody. I'm always going to ask you that. I'm always going to push you because I'm pushing myself to love your enemy. Work on it. At least try. Okay? I just dress it up in different ways. We can do the biographical sermon. We can do a sermon on Jesus. We can do a religious sermon. But that's my theme. So far you like it. You're still here. Because it gets us through the week. And so that's why I'm doing this, because I believe in love and oneness. I believe that. I would die for it. I believe that. I know it. I don't believe it. I know it. And I want you to know it. Because you don't need faith. Once you know. You don't need faith because you've experienced it. Romantic love for a moment. That's why I love that song. That's why I sit there and I cry. Because I know there's a place where there's more love. And when I leave here, I'm going back there. Not today, you know what I believe for good. But you know what I mean. But there's a place. We believe that. The category of romantic love is quite different. There is sentiment and romance. And yet this level of love is seldom maintained. Why? Because they never told us growing up that love takes work. After the sex starts to mellow out. After, oh, you're so cute and you like tea too, and I love ice cream too. After all that, you gotta start working at this. And then they don't tell you that. They don't tell you that. And so with the romantic love, and so it is the purview of the young and the daydream of the elderly. It is synonymous with passion and an overflow of feelings that defy all common sense. To be in love is to be many things, but it is to be vulnerable. See, I can hurt you in ways that no one else can because I know you. If I'm in love with you, we love each other. That's the pain. And you risk it. Love takes courage. Why? Because somebody's going to die first. So it takes courage. It's not for the faint of heart. Somebody's going first, not unless it's one of those things. You're in the same plane or the same car or something. Oh, you know, doesn't always have to be that way. But it takes courage to love. And so it's to be vulnerable because one's common sense has failed you. you forget, or you can forget to guard your heart. Trust can dissolve into treachery. Our ideas of romantic love change over time, hopefully. The more insecure person may believe a partner must continually shower them with gifts and attention and praise, which is not altogether bad, but it's just unrealistic. And so another person who values their independence seeks a partner who's in good health. They're not too demanding. A companion and lover who will be convenient for you if you have a busy life. These are not value judgments. I'm just setting the table. It's a balancing act, this game that we play with the gift of love, resenting giving our love to someone or something that gives us back so little in return. Because real love doesn't act. I'm not talking about dysfunctional families and marriages. I'm not saying staying back. But when you love someone, there's really no strings attached. I remember in my first marriage, and we were having some problems, and obviously that marriage didn't last. And I said, you know, but I know you, and I know that you want me to be happy whether you're with me or not, right? They said, no. I got nervous. We used to call that graveyard love when I was coming up. If I can't have you, nobody else will. But at least they were honest. And then years later, after the divorce, you know, we had that conversation, and it was different. Yeah, I want you to be happy. But at that time, they were honest. This is love, or what's passing for love. In no other area of life do we expect this kind of fairness, this equal exchange. We give our minds to an idea. We give our bodies to our jobs, our days to activities that we may or may not even really like to do. Some things have to be done, and we hope for some amount of fairness in what we give and are given back. We hope that our hard work will produce results. We hope that the dinner we prepare will be eaten with delight. Our ideas will be greeted as inspired. And when this doesn't happen, we say life isn't fair. Nor was it meant to be. But we say love should be. We look at the world and we see a world of madness. Love cannot be brought into a world of madness, but nor a world of madness can be brought to love. Love can allow a new world to be seen. I used to wonder why Louis Armstrong could sing like that. It's a wonderful world. When black folks were being lynched, when we were at war in Vietnam and little proxy wars everywhere. But it was the way he saw. Didn't mean those things were true, but it's the shift in perception that takes place. And so our task is not to look for love. That's not your job. But you're to seek out all the barriers you put up to receiving love. That's your job. Where do I block love from coming into my life? Because I don't think I deserve it. Because if you don't think you deserve it, you won't get it. And most of us come from a religion that says you don't deserve the good that comes in your life. You don't deserve the good person in your life. You don't deserve the good job. You don't deserve the good fortune. Because you're a sinner and you're messed up. And that affects you. People, when I was single and I was dating, I knew the dates that were going to last and that didn't. Because now I, at this time, struggled. I finally started to believe I really deserved good. And I knew the people that I would date, and I even said to them, this is not going to last because you don't think you deserve this. And sure enough, they didn't. And I was going through my life doing the same thing, not really thinking I deserve good. Well, if I don't deserve good for me, you know I don't want you to have it. I don't want you to have it because I don't have it. It's just something to think about. Just something to think about. now oneness, and we'll tie it all up and get out of here. I wish I could do a Rod Sterling imagine if you were that kid. On January 2nd, 2007, Rod Sterling. But this is not, anyway. On January 2nd, 2007, Wesley Autry, a 50-year-old African-American construction worker and Navy veteran, was waiting for a subway train in Manhattan with his two daughters at around 12:45 p.m. Standing there, Mr. Autry was unaware that he was about to become involved in a sequence of events that would change his life and that would reveal profound truths about the nature of the human mind. He noticed a young man named Cameron Hollipeter, 20 years young. Mr. Hollipeter was having a seizure. The young man managed to get to his feet, but he stumbled from the subway tracks on a subway platform onto the tracks between the two rails. Now people will just push you in front of them for you. There's a lot of that going on in New York now, if you've been keeping up. Very dangerous. But Autry saw the lights of the oncoming subway train, and he made an instant decision. He jumped onto the tracks, thinking he would have time to drag Hollipeter away. Realizing that this was impossible, he covered Hollipeter's body with his own and pressed him down into a drainage ditch about a foot between the tracks. The train operator tried to stop, the brakes screeched, but by the time he did so, 5 cars had passed over the 2 men. It was a close call. The cars were so close to Autry that they smudged grease on the blue knit cap that he was wearing. And Autry heard the onlookers screaming. And he yelled up at them. He said, "We're okay. We're okay. I have 2 daughters up there. Just let them know their father's okay." Then he heard the cries of wonder and applause from the bystanders. So Hollipeter, a student at NYU Film Academy, was taken to the hospital, but he sustained only bumps and bruises. Autry refused medical help. He said, "Nothing's wrong." Well, here's the question, though. Why did Autry do it? Yes, that's what I would say. He told the New York Times, "I don't feel that I did something spectacular. I just saw someone who needed help, and I did what I felt was right." Yeah, I'm with you. He said further that as a construction worker, that he was used to working in confined spaces, and that his judgment in this case proved to be pretty right. What an understatement. He was extraordinarily modest, but this did not shield him from the public adulation. He was an overnight celebrity with appearances on several national morning news TV programs and late night shows. The gifts started pouring in, scholarships and computers for his 2 daughters, a new Jeep Patriot, season tickets to the then called New York Jets, stinkers. That's right, New Jersey Jets, they both stink, but that's okay. I mean, the man risked his life and you give him tickets to that. A 1-year free parking pass for use anywhere in New York City.
Oh, that's
And a year of free subway rides, among other things. I don't know if I take that now, but Time magazine named him as one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2007. He was named CNN Hero, a title given for making a difference in the world. He was a guest at the 2007 State of the Union address to the U.S. Congress, where he received a standing ovation. once again, I'm going to tie it in 5 minutes. The $100,000 question, and I'm with you, but I'm not the deepest thinker. Why risk everything? Why would one person risk their lives for a total stranger? I just don't think this way, but the answer may seem obvious. He or she simply cares and has empathy and love for the person in need. That's what I would say. But for evolutionary biologists who think very differently, that answer's not enough. Evolutionary biologists want to know what purpose is served by the caring and empathy and love. What does the individual gain by acting on these feelings? See, I think that's kind of cynical, but perhaps I'm wrong. These biologists say that we are programmed to act in ways that ensure our survival and reproduction. Are they wrong? They say that our emphatic acts might only extend to those closest to us, our siblings, children, our kin, because that will serve us in the long run, generally speaking. Or we may extend that empathy to someone from our tribe or social unit because we may one day need them to reciprocate. I don't think this way. But that's why I wanted to put it out there to you, because you just can't hang out with everybody that thinks the same way. In this rather short-sighted view, to my perspective, what these biological people are saying is that what he did was biological heresy. That should not have happened. Now, I have a friend who was in Vietnam and he did some crazy stuff that I thought to save someone's life, bullets coming, but they're trained to do that because you're a unit. You go from Paris Island to wherever we send you. Mr. Autry was in the military. He was connected to Mr. Cameron Hollopeter as a human being, say the biologist. But racially, stoically, socially, and occupationally or culturally, no, he should not have done what he did. According to the science of evolutionary biology, Wesley Autry should have stayed on that platform and let Mr. Cameron Hollopeter fend for himself. Now, some would argue that Autry did benefit from saving Hollopeter. He became famous. He had his 15 minutes of fame. His daughters received college funds and computers. He received cash rewards. He got sort of a genetic payback, if you will. But he didn't know in advance that these things would happen. And so the mythologist, Joseph Campbell, was very much interested in why people performed selfless acts. And Campbell was influenced by the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, who asked, how is it that an individual can so participate in the danger and pain of another that they forget their own self-protection? They move spontaneously to the other's rescue, even at the risk of their own life. Schopenhauer believed that self-sacrifice for another occurs because the rescuer realizes that he or she and the individual are indeed one. At the decisive moment, the sense of separation is totally overcome. The danger to the one in need becomes the danger to the rescuer. The sense of separation is seen as the illusion that it is. It's simply a way we've been taught to function and how we experience space and time. Regardless of what may appear to be, we are connected to one another. What I do to you, I do to me. This is science now. It's not kumbaya. Because we experience ourselves as one with the person in need, when we risk our life to save them, we are saving ourselves. Campbell goes on to say that spontaneous compassion would jump cultural boundaries. If you were to see, we'll keep it to the human level. If you were to see a star person, if you were to see a deceased loved one, if you were to see a different manifestation of energy, now remember, I just told you about scientists are welcome here and the mystics are welcome here. And we as UUs affirm the direct experience of that, I'm quoting, of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. So we don't have to go that far out. An animal, another sentient being. Suppose, let's just keep it with a human being for now. A person of another race or nation that you have no sympathy for. In this case, we'll pick a Russian person now, since that's not going to be our choice these days. We'll find another one, but for right now it's Russia. The recognition of a common human identity would spark a response. I have never heard of a rescuer inquiring whether the person was a Democrat or a Republican, whether they were pro-choice or anti-abortion, how he or she stands on the issue of climate change, or whether one prefers allopathic medicine or homeopathy. I've never had anyone ask that, seen that, but they've rescued someone. The reaction to this sense of oneness leapfrogs all of those concerns and sees them for what they really are. They are illusions. It's like race. We know there's no such thing as race. It's a construct. But we believe it. So you can believe in something and make it so. We made this illusion and then we believe in it so strongly that we manifested it. That's not new age talk, that's science. And so Schopenhauer wrote in his book on the basis of morality, universal compassion is the only guarantee of morality. My own true inner being actually exists in every living creature. In Sanskrit, it is referred to as tat tvam asi, thou art that. It describes the relationship between the individual and the absolute, God, the force, the mind, primal cause, whatever you are. You are that. And that is who you are. And that is who we are. And science is just catching up with this, but thanks to quantum theory, thanks to the old Cartesian, Newtonian worldview is obsolete. It is gone. That train has left the station, that all I can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell is real. You are living in the Stone Age if you have reduced like that. You are more than just the mucus and pus and excrement and urine that you're about. You are more than that. Now, you may not believe it. That's not my problem. I got my own problems. The old science says, show me, and I'll believe. But that's not how it works. Believe, and I'll show you. Believe, and I'll show you. The fact of the matter is this, and it's humbling. The awareness of this oneness, it catches us by surprise. Not in dangerous situations, but just in the mundane of life, of listening to the music. Watching a sunset, enjoying a good meal, watching a baby, Jim. Or simply doing nothing. You can't engineer it, you can only be aware of it. It's a lot like love. The Buddhist observation, when you hunt for it, you lose it. You can't take hold of it, but you can't get rid of it. And while you can do neither, it just goes on its way. You remain silent and it speaks, And when you speak, it is silent. And when we identify so completely with someone that separation of self, we're in the domain of oneness. And you can't measure that. There's no metric to it. And that's why I don't agree. I mean, I don't think there's a utility. I mean, sometimes you just react. And I just take it at that. But that's why I'm not a biologist. And that's why they're not ministers. This prepares us for actions that we wouldn't even consider in our self-oriented day-to-day frame of mind. Our future depends on us thinking like this, on us taking this larger view. Einstein was correct, at least in my mind, that the greatest illusion in this world is the illusion that you and I are separate. And there are people who will exploit it. And they'll have us in a worse mess than we're in now. Principle number 7 states, respect for the interdependent web of which we are all a part. That's what we say we affirm. This is the big spider web. We're all connected. Today, it is not just people on subway tracks who need our help, but the entire world. But entrance into this oneness makes this task not only thinkable, it also makes it possible. Just a little something to think about. Just something to think about. Okay, let's go home. Just as long as I have breath, as I close again. Let's sing it with conviction. Hymn number 6. Show some love, right, to our musicians and choirs. For Brother Reed for keeping us relevant. All right. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, and which puts to flight all of our fears, and reconciles all that stuff. Be with us until we meet again. Bon appetit. Have a wonderful afternoon.